Is he coming in? Yeah.
See you. See you. Feeling? Oh, look good. See how it goes.
You don't look so bad yourself.
What's that?
You don't look so bad yourself.
Okay, Rich,
Which,
maybe you could start with the double wood utility poles.
Yep.
On the paper roads.
Okay, so the double woods. Basically, I know, Paul, I've CC'd you on the campaign we had, I think, over the last 6-7 months. We have a real issue in town where there's either a utility pole that gets damaged, hit, Con Ed will come in and put a second pole. In some cases, we have 3 poles. They'll put a new pole in, they'll switch their utilities over to the pole, and
Tie them together and leave them.
and it gets left. We've outlined two.
Another thing they're doing is they're cutting one in half.
Right.
And
Well,
leaving it.
Yes, once Con Ed, generally Con Ed's in the best shape, they move their stuff over, they're responsible to then top where their utility's connected, and then the next utility has to come and do the work. And then, eventually the pole gets removed. The problem is it's not happening. And we've sent a list to Tim and Paul. Right now, we have 260 double woods documented. This is half the town. Mike Rico went out and his team, they documented who's on it, what's got to be done, if it can be removed. We've got poles out there that have nothing on it that even haven't been removed. We've got situations, one on Jackson Avenue, where we have a double wood that was hit. Con Ed came, did what they had to do. The pole remains on 2 4x4 posts. It's on the shadow line, which is basically the white line of the painted line of the road. They've been put on notice. We've included Rich Marassi in all these, because ultimately, if something happens, he's the one that gets the claim. But it's time that we have to do something. And again, 260 poles, it's only half the town. So, Town of Yorktown, Supervisor Grace and Michael McDermott and the board up there created this code. And at one point I told them, I said, it's all right if we, take it and manipulate it so it works for the town. And they had no issue with that. So a draft was sent out, and so far they've had, I think, a great success with now the utilities coming in to start work up there, because there is a fine associated with these poles. And like I said, it's gotten to the point where it's if you drive up Underhill Avenue, there's another where there are wires that are just, if you really think about it when you're driving over the next week, just take a look. It's incredible what you see. We have wires down. How many complaints do you get about Con Ed and Verizon?
It's nonstop.
It doesn't stop, and it's something that's absolutely addressable and preventable.
So you say that the rule is when Con Ed comes and puts up another pole, they top the existing pole, and it's up to the incoming utility to deal with the leftover existing pole? What does that mean?
Well, for instance, there's an order on the utility poles first. The highest is generally Con Edison, the power lines. And then from there, at varying heights, you'll find your Verizon, your different types of your telecommunications, whether they're fiber, whether they're phones, well, generally it's phones and fiber and cable. And those are lower down in the poles, because it's not Con Edison's responsibility to maintain Verizon services, so they do what they're responsible for and then put notice to Verizon, to Cablevision, Level 3 Communications, and whoever else may have an occupation on those poles, saying, go and take care of your utilities. The problem is that there is no reason. If Verizon say, hey, my cable's working, why do I care that the pole is damaged or hanging there? As long as it works, it doesn't make a difference to them.
So are these utilities currently on those shorter poles?
Yes,
or
that's the problem. They're all on the shorter poles.
They're already there.
Right, they're already there.
So Verizon topped them, and they were on the poles to Con Ed. They were on the poles together.
Yes.
Con Ed topped them, left the other utilities underneath them.
Right.
Put in a new pole and established service and residents on the new pole.
Right. And what happens is the other utilities don't seem to have the same impetus, desire, urgency to go and change out their facilities, whereas.
So they need to move their service to the new pole.
To the new
Yes.
pole.
So the old one will come out.
Okay.
So what's the incentive to move, get them to move?
They have none.
The fine.
What do we need to do to give them that incentive?
Yeah, but what?
We're gonna
Do you have a draft of a law?
Richie's fine. Richie's fine. Yeah, Richie's fine.
Yorktown, they took, charge in this, because, again, they saw the same thing, and Chuck and I were talking about this earlier. Every other municipality that sees this is gonna eventually jump aboard. And I'll send you some of the worst case that we've sent to Paul, and we send it to all the utilities. Drive down Route 9A.
Yep.
From line to line. And especially in the yards later, it's
Yes, it's
incredible
bad.
what's out there. Absolutely incredible. And there are some really dangerous situations out there.
So what makes it dangerous?
As you mentioned, hanging there by rope,
I mean,
Some of
4x4s, and it's just
Okay.
the other thing is.
But how do they get that, if when Con Ed puts in a new pole and they top the other pole, if it wasn't dangerous before they did that, does doing that make it dangerous?
They had to be moved.
No, they had
because
to be
the pole
moved.
was damaged, whether it was hit by a car or a truck, so it could
okay.
be sitting there with
Okay.
rope around it, holding it up.
Tied off.
Jackson Avenue right now is the worst
Gotcha.
case.
Okay.
Drive up Jackson
You
Avenue.
have to see them.
As you're going up the hill onto the left near the cemetery, there is a pole. The new pole's behind it, the old pole's in front of it, and it's on 4x4 posts. And it actually looks like it's leaning now, and it's on the shadow, it's right off the shadow line.
gonna
So,
fall.
yeah, and my concern was during the winter season, Chuck's guys are out doing their thing during the storms,
Clipping it.
Oh, yeah, really, but there's wires. I mean, I will send some of the pictures that I've sent to Supervisor Finer to the board. I think when you see this, it speaks volumes.
Okay.
I mean, and, it's not something that usually I'm crazy about it because we get the calls all the time. But as you're driving around, you'll see, we've got areas where there's 3 poles, 2 with nothing on them, just left.
Let me ask you a question. Since we have the Yorktown law, would we be in a position of introducing the proposed law, say at the next meeting, and then we have to have a public hearing because it's a local law? Could we put this on the agenda
Well,
for?
we should vet it first.
Right, we need
Yeah.
to see how it fits.
Yeah, well, we know their answer, but we should send it to them as
But the
well.
CAC should look at it?
No, I'm saying if we introduce it and then
then go
forward
to
it to the
different-
CAC.
Okay.
Yeah, just to let you know, there also is a fine associated with the
Right, but
Yorktown
I'm just
test,
saying,
currently $1,000.
this way
per
we're
pole.
starting the process, and then we could,
Day, when does it start? Do they have a window?
Every day.
But do they have a window
Yeah, they do have a
within which to
window.
take it down, and then if they
I-
don't make that window, then it's $1,000 a
Does that
day?
go to the town court?
I don't know.
I think
would
it's,
this, would a local law like this have to go to any other boards besides the CAC?
I presume it would not be in 285, so technically, I don't think it would.
So do you know what, why don't
It'd be
we
in zoning ordinance. That's
introduce
the only
it
requirement.
next week, and we'll ask the CAC to report back to us within a month.
okay. And just so
Put
you
that
know,
on the
too,
agenda?
Con Edison has emailed us
Introducing local laws.
because we've kind of let them know that this might be coming, and they've asked to meet with the board prior to any decision.
Okay.
Who was asked?
Con Ed.
Con Edison.
There's another thing that, talking about Yorktown, I was at a meeting of the Town Supervisors Association, the Westchester Town Supervisors Association, and they we've gotten a lot of complaints about debris, on roads, and many times, we send out crews trying to clear the debris, and they have an ordinance where people who take photos of, let's say somebody's littering or whatever, take a photo of them doing it, then people could be fined, and they actually fine somebody as a result of that.
Yeah, they
You
get someone
promote-
for $500.
Yeah, so that's another law that we may want to take a look at, because if you look at, say, Dobbs Ferry Road, parts of Central Avenue, we get complaints,
Tarrytown Road.
Old Tarrytown Road.
That's a weekly job.
We always get complaints, say, near Haddon Road, in that area, we've sent crews out. So my feeling is that this is a way of addressing the debris problem. We might want to look at that. I mean, would you recommend?
The
Isn't
garbage?
that called the program?
Yeah, the utility.
That program was shown by the gentleman from Yonkers, where a resident can take a picture of.
Friends are fried.
Yeah, Friends are Fried, yeah.
I thought I'd heard that before, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about roadside garbage and the amount of time, I mean, Chuck's department does major right-of-way cleanup, but the sanitation department is out every day picking up roadside, and it's, you're talking about Old Tarrytown Road, everything blows up the hill.
Right up
And it's
alongside
got that fence, and it's like a catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
So that's a weekly spot. I mean, I think what Supervisor Feiner is talking about, and what Yorktown did, was they put up a cam where they had what you call a hotspot. And they caught someone driving, it was a kid driving his grandmother's car, and they caught him throwing something out the window. And, they did get fined $500. And that area has now significantly decreased with the garbage, other than.
Right, because we have like a couple hot,
Like Old
Yeah.
Mexico Road.
Yeah.
That would be a good place for a camp.
People, that guy,
Dumping TVs and,
Chuck's guys took a
Yeah.
Mack truck of TVs.
it's unbelievable.
Tires.
Refrigerators.
And it accumulates in like 30 days.
Sawmill south
Doesn't it?
of Worthington.
Yeah.
so do you think,
Hung out there.
should we take, do you think we should refer both, laws? They're both quality of life?
Yeah.
Sure.
So could we do that next Wednesday?
Well, I mean, I think the problem is I have to create the law and circulate
That's
it to
okay.
you so you can see it.
I have no problem with you spending time on it.
What we basically did with the utility pole, with the
That's
double
called delegating,
just took
right?
Yorktown's name out
Something
and put
different.
Greenburgh in.
We could do that then. We'll do one this time and then one, before.
So what is this one being called? Introduction of local law regarding roadside debris?
No, that will be,
That's the second
Well,
round.
the follow-up.
Victor would like to
Then
focus
what is
on
the
the
first
polls
one?
first.
they'll do the polls here.
Double wood
Double wood
utility
utility
poles.
Utility poles, okay.
But, it's sort of interesting, the, like roadside debris, the utility poles, these are quality of life issues that we get a lot of complaints about, constantly. So this is a way of the town that could be more proactive and, at least, addressing it. If people feel they're going to be caught, then they're not going to do it. Good, so you have also the paper roads issue?
Yeah, you wanted to.
I guess as far as an introduction, a paper road issue is something, first off, to explain what a paper road is to those watching or everybody here who may or may not fully understand. And Tim, help me out where I might go astray here, but generally, broad brush approach. A paper road is something we refer to as a road that was part of a subdivision that was mapped at one point and planned at some point in time for an improvement, meaning to be paved and to have the properties adjacent to that developed. For whatever reason, when some developments happened periods of time ago, not all of the roads planned were fully developed, meaning some of the roads were never paved over, and the properties against some of those roads were not developed into for their final use. There's a process when a subdivision is completed for the applicant to go to the town and request that those roads be accepted as public roads. It's because they've been followed the town code, they were properly improved, if you will, and generally, historically, the town then goes forward and accepts those, and there's a list of those roads that the clerk usually maintains, making it a town road. If that road was on a map but was never improved, paved, that road may not have been offered for dedication. However, it was officially mapped, but it goes into what we might call now as sort of that limbo. It's on paper, meaning if you go to a map, you'll see that that road actually exists, and there are metes and bounds describing that, but because it was never improved as was intended, the town never accepted that for dedication. And the adjacent properties don't own it, because when they bought into the subdivision, they had their metes and bounds described, and of course it didn't go to those roadways. So these roads become sort of who owns them and who maintains them. And what we've had happening is we've done some research on some, and it appears that they may go back to the original subdivider, which, could be the ABC LLC that disappeared hundreds of years ago. But there's a question about who maintains it, because as these roads were not improved, many of them have trees growing on them, and in time, trees do tend to die, and sometimes these trees may cause problems if they are near the edge of a road, and they might have a potential to fall into somebody's home, or maybe the adjacent homeowners say, this land is unkept and should be maintained in some sort of a way. And we run into this area where we're asked to go into an area. There might be a tree on a hillside that looks like it's in imminent danger of falling, and if it does fall, it might take down a utility wire, for instance. Well, but we find out that that road is not, it's a paper road. We don't have clear lineage, clear signs of ownership of that road. The adjacent homeowners don't have any ownership of that road. So we would not be in any of our rights to go onto this and start doing any type of work, because technically it's not town property. So what we're asking the town board is for some direction to either find through whatever processes might be available, the original owners, possibly use other mechanisms available to the town, such as quit claim deeds, if that's possible, and maybe we can determine whether these roads should be maintained and owned by the town, or should otherwise be offered for some type of auction and sold to adjacent property owners or whomever might want to purchase that property in auction. What we're asking is for some direction, though, on a policy basis, because we have numerous areas where we are asked to do work, but we can't because we don't have ownership lines. And with that, Rich and Chuck, our general foreman, are here to add on to whatever I can as far as the more specific and pressing needs, but that's it in large scope.
I think in one respect, and we came to the board some weeks back about a condition that was dangerous to the traveling public, and the board gave us authority to go in and do what we had to do, and we did. That job was finished up. A bunch of trees were cut, but what we're getting and what Chuck's getting on an almost daily basis, now are people concerned about limbs, trees, garbage, brush, and whenever it's not their property, rightfully they call the town. We get the complaint, we send people out, usually Chuck, to go take a look. But it's become more and more of a situation where now we're put on notice of a potential situation. We don't take action because it's not ours. Are we going to get ourselves into trouble down the road? Are we going to be put at fault, even though it's not our property? Chuck can give you great detail about, what do we got, 4, how many?
I would say we're close to 4 miles
Of road.
paper roads. And like Rich said, the calls are just daily on trees.
That's it in a nutshell.
I mean, really, I didn't bring any paperwork, but this is an example of basically what it looks like on the map, where your road goes here, your road is here. This road, it may look like a road, but it's in the middle of the woods.
I think what we need is a list of what the roads, what's around them, and is any of it valuable to the town?
And your recommendations.
And your recommendations on these various roads, to try to figure out what a policy should be, because I believe right now as we don't own them, we'd have to reach out to find out where we would go if we felt that it would be valuable to the town, that we own it.
I think where they are located, a lot of them go between houses, behind houses. The value to the town really is nothing.
But I think
Where they would value the homeowner probably more than.
Actually, it's an insurance problem, because we have liability on some of them.
If it's not
Yeah.
ours, then really we don't, you know what I mean?
Well, if it's
until
not
you go on
ours,
and
yeah.
do something,
Right,
and
yeah,
then
the second
whoever
we
owns
touch
it
it,
can.
Yeah.
Then
I
it's-
think,
Right.
I think that brings up an interesting point. It could be an insurance problem, it could be a liability problem if we own it, but the problem is that we're trying to establish just a clear line of ownership, and that's where we always have difficulty, because it's a research, and most of them are going to end up going into deep title searching,
Right.
which means somebody has to be hired, there has to be time and money spent in order to come up with an answer, and that's where we keep running into problems, because we don't know if this is something the town, that's where we just run into issues, because it's a matter of doing the research, doing the titles, coming up with the answers, and then making a final choice, and that's why we're looking for some direction.
Well, I guess we need to know what a cost would be.
Right, but I think that really is the place to start, because my understanding is sometimes the title company will come back and say, paper road where? This road belongs to this neighbor, and this part belongs to this neighbor, this part belongs, that one we can just say, okay, great, it's the neighbors, there you go.
Yeah,
So then we've gotten rid of 0.5 miles of the 4-mile stretch.
And we
So
love
that
that.
might be a way to start getting rid of some of it.
But it starts with money being spent on a title search.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, right now, Rich Morassi's working with the suit. I don't think we can get into the details of the suit, but we are being sued right now in an area of town where a tree fell from a paper road onto someone in their backyard. So it's not theirs, you know, they come after the town. You know, and then we gotta go prove that we didn't go in there and maintain it, you know, it's a great expense on our end of labor, you know, and time. Where certainly that time and effort can be put to better use.
There's an issue that's been going on for a very long time. There was, in the 1970s, the then town board tried to do away with paper roads, and it became extremely controversial to the point that I believe a councilman was no longer a councilman over the issues of how they disposed of paper roads.
Really?
And so there's quite an extensive history regarding these paper roads and why people don't touch them. I think we have to do something. Doing title searches on all of these is going to be extremely expensive. Generally, when we get a claim, I don't believe we have to prove it's not ours. I think the person who's bringing the claim has to prove that we are the owner. So that's one way of getting a title report done. For the hazards, you know, that's something we have to look at. So maybe we could prioritize these paper roads as to those that seem to have a hazard associated with it and those that don't.
And need addressing,
Yeah, we just need answers as to how to respond to that.
Okay, so we'll discuss it. I just want to mention before you leave, Garrett with, you know, this is to Garrett and, you know, Victor and Rich. I was, you know, bicycling on West Hartsdale Avenue, and I got an email, you know, this morning from somebody. You know, the road is like extremely dangerous for bicyclists or, you know, pedestrians because it's a state road and the edge of it's crumbling. It's uneven. You know, and you know, I wasn't the only bicyclist. There's other people who I see bicycling and walking. I'm sort of wondering what it would take. You know, I know that we've worked with the state now. We got a grant, you know, in terms of the from Marion Avenue on Central Avenue to Four Corners. You know, a sidewalk is going to take, you know, forever, you know, to get approval. If we could have just gotten the state to widen the sidewalks, even on the area where there's no engineering, that, you know, even if they did a portion of it where it's, you know, parts of it would be, you know, relatively easy, and then there's parts that are ditches, you know, which would require engineering. And, you know, so I'm wondering if we could have tried doing like a two-pronged thing. Yes, the state, if they could widen, you know, the shoulders, and then the second thing is see if we could maybe do a partnership with them where we could get, do an engineering, you know, study to see what it would take to widen the shoulders to make it at least, you know, safer. I mean, this would be, in terms of pedestrian safety, I would think this would be like the #1 safety improvement we can make.
But you remember, Paul, some years back, the state did resurface West Hartsdale.
And it made it worse.
What was the Skimco? We met with the state representatives in our area mid-March.
Yeah.
All right? There's another meeting set up with Victor and our group. Now, it was, the first time it was just Chuck and I. Now we're bringing Victor into it, because the state, in our meeting, had told us that there's no funding for any resurfacing in the area this upcoming cycle at all, other than the Soma River Parkway, Chuck, if I'm not mistaken, which we have an issue with, because a lot of the complaints that you get, that you forward to us, are the state roads, and they're in Greenburgh, so people assume they're Greenburghs. The next meeting we have, we're bringing Victor in, you know, taking it to the next level. The other issue we're having with the state, which is part of this meeting, is the maintenance of the right-of-ways. Again, we're having Chuck's guys go out and, right, wrong, or indifferent, addressing issues that they're not. So we're looking to partner with them to get some of these right-of-ways cleaned, just as we are with Mount Pleasant on Virginia Road, so that there's some kind of overlap, because if left, unattended, nothing happens. But I think on the board's level and the state, it would probably be very important for you to reach out, to your...
But I'm just saying, if you could also, because I'm saying, to say it's dangerous is like an understatement. It's like extremely dangerous for any bicyclist. There's a lot of bicyclists and pedestrians, who walk on it. And, it's so, and because if somebody's riding and if the road is like this and then there's it's not even, you could go and then there's a car that's getting close to you and you could fall off your bicycle, really pretty easily.
And I think actually for that specific reason, I would be very cautious about doing any types of widening in areas that can until you have a plan to do it all, because just for that exact same reason, when you go down West Hartsdale, as you well know, there are those gullies, and then all of a sudden the gully drops into a storm drain that actually is open, and then there might be other areas where you can pave, and I would hate to see somebody riding along a paved area and all of a sudden having to stop because now you've got this gully, and when you're riding a bike, you all of a sudden find yourself in one of those gullies. It's not a pleasant
So would
answer.
this be maybe for the next round of the pedestrian safety?
Well-
If we apply for pedestrian safety for West Hartsdale Avenue, are we supposed to have it shovel ready? Would it make sense for us to do the engineering study first and then say, this is how much it's going to cost? I mean, we got $792,000. There's communities that have gotten $1 million from the state. So would we be better off authorizing the study now and then including this in a grant application, for next year? But my feeling is make it more of a shoulder widening, because I'm sure that's less expensive. Wouldn't that be less expensive?
I think all these are great ideas. I mean, drainage is, see, the problem with one of these state roads is drainage becomes a key area. So, and that's where your costs start going up. And whether you even look at Hillside Avenue, when you go up Hillside Avenue, you see the gullies. Now, the ideal solution is to put curb, take all those gullies, create drains, and put a sidewalk over that. But it does become an engineered solution. I think what we could probably do is between Garrett, myself, Rich, Chuck, you're mentioning West Hartsdale. Possibly we should decide which road you want to kind of focus on, and let's see what we could do. Garrett has experience working with the state on some of these grants. Our staff, from an engineering perspective, are knowledgeable about what all the pitfalls might be going forward. Maybe we could try to put something together and an initial, at least a communication to the state and start something.
And it's really amazing because, I see near where I live on Spring or on Fort Hill, on Saley, you see all the people using the sidewalks, and, until it's there, you don't realize how important it is, and once you open it up, it changes the quality of life for, an awful lot of people. So that should be like number one priority after.
In terms of priority, I agree. I mean, the Central, we got the grant for that, and that's, going to impact a wide number of people. But if you can connect Central, West Hartsdale Avenue from Central all the way to 119, I think in terms of volumes of residents that would be positively impacted from that, I think that would be number one. I mean, there's just high-density areas, and, you don't need the sidewalks into the side streets as a high priority now, but if you could just get them to that road, just the quality of life would be so greatly impacted in a positive way.
Yeah, so you could work on that also.
As we said, we're going to work together, and, And generally with grants, the more you come to the table with, the better. So if you do have some engineering work done first, that helps. If you have matches, that helps. It all helps. So your question...
So would you recommend that we just have somebody start doing the work on that?
It's something we'll think about. It's something we're definitely going to think about. It's a good point. I think we need to think about it. Right. Find out what the goal is, and it's an incremental goal, and
Okay, good, thank you.
So wait a minute, just to circle back to the paper road policy, Chuck asked a specific question, which is what to tell people when they call and ask about maintenance of these roads. I was wondering if we could agree that, at least as an interim measure, what you tell them is, unless there is danger to life, limb, or property, it's not our road, we don't maintain it. Is that something we can legitimately tell people who call?
Yeah, it's
Well,
not really
I don't
danger
think
to life
the
limit
converse
property.
is not
It's-
necessarily
it's-
true. If it's dangerous, therefore it's not ours.
Yeah.
We've got to be careful in that wording.
Okay, but
Yeah.
something like, maybe we can, but something like that, because I think that's what they're really looking for, is something to
Be
say.
careful going in at all.
Right,
Yeah.
You
right,
know?
right. So,
When we touch it, we might have married ourselves.
right, exactly,
And
exactly.
it's got to implicate a town road or a
Okay.
town property. If it's private property, they should be, calling someone else other than the town.
Okay.
You know, perhaps their homeowners insurance or something like that.
So can you work on something and maybe put it on next week's agenda so that we can get something to them as like a script or whatever that they
Right.
know that they can freely say?
I can bring you paperwork that you can look at, just to see how big of an issue it is in town.
Oh, no
I have a
doubt,
stack of
no
papers.
doubt, no doubt. It's not the seriousness of the issue, it's what to tell people.
No, and I agree, and I think we definitely have some serious pitfalls that we have to be concerned about, and that's, we'll bring up with Tim, but in any scenario, if you say, well, it's dangerous, therefore we're gonna take care of it, well, to the contrary, if it's dangerous, but we don't wanna take care of it, and either way, we have a possibility. If we wait for it to be dangerous, for the tree to fall, then we say, let the person who had incurred the damage get the title search, and the title search goes back and shows it was ours. Okay, so you've got, it's,
Yeah.
but no matter which scenario you come with, there are problems. So what we're looking for is someone is going to have to take a proactive approach to resolve these before they become a problem, so that we don't have the potential liability of finding out later on that it was our issue and we did nothing about it. And that's where we keep finding, because we really don't want to find ourselves in a position that a tree fell from town property that we didn't know about, and we know where that can go. And that's really what we're trying to avoid, and it's just the volume of calls are getting to the point where we need to have a policy and a direction to do something.
But I also think, Ken, to your point, it's important as like Sid, who will get a call down a highway, knows how to respond, or
That's
Vincent.
right, yeah.
So that those two guys basically are gonna get the calls, other than Supervisor Finer, who then forwards it to us or to them. So, there was something that they could read, so that we cover ourselves.
Okay, good.
Correct.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Next,
guys.
the leap blowers is May 16th, and the playground for disabled children, we're working with, Jerry on that, so we don't really have to discuss it.
Jerry's here.
Jerry? And then we'll go on to the bills.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.